Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion, your host, the Hut, and we are back here at the Baseball Hut too, and I need you to subscribe and like this video. We have super thanks on here, so if you think I'm doing a great job, send me a little tip, and to show your gratitude to all the hard work I do here. But we are now a little over, 35 hours? No, not 35 hours, like 27 hours away. 28 hours away from, 29 hours away. It doesn't matter. The trade deadline is at 6 p.m. on August 1st, Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to talk about some trade rumors here as we get closer. Some players have been moved, as you know. Max Scherzer has been moved, David Robertson, Jordan Montgomery, Jordan Hicks, Randall Krychek, C.J. Cron, Kendall Graveman, Lance Lynn, John Kelly, and a few others. I'm going to talk about a couple, and this is actually a pretty big suggestion in this video. First up is the Milwaukee Brewers. I know. This is why you came here, is to get the Milwaukee Brewers. From MLBTradeRumors.com. The Brewers are hoping to add another bat to their lineup ahead of the deadline, even after landing first baseman Carlos Santana and a deal with the Pirates last week, according to Athletics' Ken Rosenthal, the Munchkin. That Milwaukee is looking to add to their offense is hardly a surprise. Their offense sucks. While Santana addresses their lack of production from first base, they nonetheless have plenty of offensive holes to fill around their roster. The club has gone below average offensive production from every position around the diamond except for left field this season. Though, that certainly doesn't mean they'll be looking to upgrade their entire offense. Shortstop Willie Adams figures to be secured in his position, for example, and newly promoted outfielder Sal Frelick figures to handle right field on a regular basis going forward. Given Joey Weimer's quality defense in center field, it seems reasonable to expect him to remain a fixture in the lineup as well, despite a lackluster WRC plus of 82. The club could add offense to its infield by swinging a deal for third baseman Jeimer Candelario, who, according to general manager Rizzo, he has at least 8 teams on him. Those teams that I know of are the Angels so far, although they might be a little bit different now, and the Miami Marlins. Or Yankees, Gleyber Torres. There's word that the Yankees might be selling. But the market for Candelario appears to be quite crowded, and the Yankees certainly appear more likely to buy than sell. That's what the article says. Let's talk the Yankees might sell. That being said, and Torres is a sort of a wonky guy. He's sort of weird as a player. That being said, either player would inject a well above average bat into the club's infield alongside Adames and Andrew Monasterio, the latter of whom can play anywhere on the infield as needed to accommodate a potential acquisition. Now, we will see what the Brewers do. Their pitching is always pretty decent. I haven't heard any pitching issues that they have. But I would expect that they will be active. They'll make some kind of move, I would think. That general manager is pretty good, and we'll see how that transpires. And in the black corner, the Baltimore Orioles. Now, the Orioles have kind of been a little quiet on the trade front, but they have not been quiet on the field. They're in first place in the American League East, and I expect them to be there for quite a long time over the next 4 or 5 years. So all those teams that are in that division, we're looking up at a very talented team, extremely talented team. But CamdenChat.com posted this: the logic of a Justin Verlander trade. ESPN's Buster Only speculated that the O's should try and land the veteran righty from the fire sale Mets. They're not really in a fire sale. That's what Billy Epler says. The fit is essentially perfect. It is, because they have the biggest farm system, the best farm system in Major League Baseball. It's already been an active trade season, but the AL East leading Orioles have been bit players to the point with several holes still to fill. Their starting rotation feels at least one arm light, and the bridge from starter to superstar closer Felix Bautista remains a work in progress. Mike Elias and his front office are notoriously tight-lipped, leaving any rumors coming out of Baltimore to be few and far between. But given the team's place in the standings, the lack of any clear-cut frontrunner on the junior circuit, and Baltimore's wealth, and the Hut means wealth, They have like their own separate team down there of players that can win 100 games. It just feels like the O's are primed to make some sort of substantial move. That led ESPN's Buster Olney to speculate during the O's 9-3 drubbing of the New York Yankees on Sunday Night Baseball about a potential move for the New York Mets ace and future Hall of Famer. Not with the Mets, Justin Verlander. Olney was clear that he has not heard anything on the O's chase of Verlander. But the pieces fit together. The Mets are in sell mode. Having already shipped out Max Scherzer to the Rangers, closes Dave Robinson to the Marlins, and Eduardo Escobar a month ago to the Angels, Verlander could be next. At 40 years old, the future Hall of Famer is still viable front of the rotation arm that sports a 3.15 ERA over 94 and a third innings this season. And although he does have a no-trade clause, it's reasonable to think that the Virginia native will waive it. I didn't realize he was from Virginia. That's a good sign. Verlander would check a few boxes for the Orioles. Most importantly, he's still really good. He has pitched really well for the Mets, I gotta say. After an injury-delayed debut in poor May, the veteran righty righted the ship. He's made 7 starts since June 26th and sports a 1.49 ERA in that time with a 178 opponent's batting average. He seems to be rounding into normal, excellent form. Now, he's not a rental. He has a contract for next year, and he has a vesting option for the following year. He wants to pitch till he's 45 years old. Now, he's coming off of Tommy John surgery. I think the first month or so, first 2 months, with him kind of having a bit of a, struggling to come back from the Tommy John because he pitched really well last year. Now, here's the thing. There is money in this situation. Now, first of all, he has to waive his no-trade clause. That's a give him a no-trade clause. That's the first thing. He seemed amenable last night when they talked to him after the game that he was willing to think about going somewhere else. He said it without saying it. But he has a big contract. He's owed, according to this, he's still owed $15 million for this year. And next year he's owed $43.33333 million for 2024. And a $35 million vesting options for 25. Now, the Orioles had the second lowest payroll in baseball. But they have players that are going to be up for arbitration. They have not spent any kind of money over the last 5 years. That's why they have all these prospects. And they've been bad for quite a few years, for at least 5 years. So that is the first obstacle in this kind of a move. The second obstacle would be the prospect, or prospects the Mets would be asking for. The Mets got a top 45 prospect for Max Scherzer from the Texas Rangers and Luis Angel Acuna, who's the brother of Ronald Acuna Jr. He's a top 45 pick, and he's now currently the number 2 best prospect in the Mets organization. So I would expect the Mets will be asking for a top 5 prospect from the Orioles. And the Rangers do have a top 5 farm system, as well as the Orioles. So if I were the New York Mets, I'd be asking for a top prospect. I've not looked through the prospect list for the Orioles before this video, but I do know they have guys like Cowser and, of course, Jackson Holiday, which that might be too much, obviously, for a 40-year-old pitcher. But obviously the Orioles want to win a World Series. I mean, if they were to pick a player like him to put in the middle of that rotation, in the middle of that clubhouse, on that young of a team, that is transformational for an organization. So that's something the Orioles should consider. But we'll see. We'll see if Verlander gets moved. Right now it's 50-50 right now. And finally, to finish up on a high note, we're going to talk about, you guessed it, the Minnesota Twins. I know. From Fan Nation. After an embarrassing weekend sweep to the last place Royals. Oh my God. Twins fans now turn their attention to the front office to see if a deadline trade can help jumpstart the team down the stretch. According to the Athletics' Dan Hayes, the Twins are listening to offers for starting pitchers Kenta Mahida and Sonny Gray, but would need to be blown away to make a deal that potentially harms their own postseason chances. This is the one thing about having an extra wild card, is that fewer teams are in on it this year that are willing to trade major league talent to teams that are in it. The New York Mets are one of those teams that are willing to trade them major league talent for younger players. So the prices are very high right now for those teams that want to buy. Because if you don't know, the Padres have decided to buy, they've decided not to sell, and the Chicago Cubs, believe it or not, have decided not to sell as well. So you're talking about a whole bunch of players that are not on the there's no for sale sign in Chicago and San Diego. The Twins do find a trade partner for either Gray or Mahita. They have former Cy Young Award winner Dallas Keuchel ready to be called up. How many teams has he been on since he was with Houston? Keuchel has a 1.13 ERA and 6 starts for the St. Paul Saints, but will most likely opt out of his deal if he is not called up by the deadline. After trading Jorge Lopez for Dylan Floro last week, the Twins are still in the market for bullpen help. Fangraphs recently predicted the Twins landing Padres closer Josh Hader at the deadline, but the Padres obviously they're gone. They're not going to sell. They're right there. They're not going to move anybody now. Hayes reports the Twins' left-handed outfielders are drawing interest, namely Max Kepler, Trevor Larnach, and Matt Wallner. Larnach is drawing interest from the multiple teams, including the San Diego Padres and the New York Mets. I mentioned about Larnach. He was considered the 34th best prospect in Major League Baseball. He's had to deal with injuries, and he's not been all that good. And an article looking at potential trades for every Major League team, the Athletic's Stephen J. Nesbitt predicted the Twins to acquire Mariners outfielder Teoscar Hernandez and Mets reliever Brooks Raley. Hernandez would fill the right-handed bat needed and shore up the Twins' woes against left-handed pitching. I would mention that the Twins have been rumored with Tommy Pham, and they've been rumored with Mark Canha, the New York Mets. The price tag for the Mets Major League players is high. Billy Epler said that. So they are going to be looking for a lot of good players in return for anybody they trade. Now, I want to thank you for watching this video. And, of course, please subscribe to the Baseball Hut 2 as we get closer and closer and closer to the trade deadline. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.